Contributor Kurt Bardella, now a veteran political and media strategist, and Republican strategist John Seaton. He worked with the presidential campaigns for Lindsey Graham, John McCain, and George Bush. Welcome to you both. Thank you. Let's start with the breaking news. Trump saying big win for America. Let's start with you, John. What's your reaction to the High Court's ruling?
Well, as your previous guest said, this wasn't a huge surprise for those who were kind of keeping an eye on what the arguments were and how the justices reacted during oral arguments. And quite frankly, I think it's good for democracy. Voters don't want courts deciding who they can and can't vote for. They'd like to have the choice themselves to either vote for or against former President Trump. So I think overall, this is a good thing for the system, and expect, as we had said before, President Trump to be on the ballot in all 50 states.
Kurt, what do you think? Do you agree the right decision by the High Court?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, at the end of the day, voters get to decide who's on their ballot. Voters get to decide who they're going to vote for. Nobody wants a small group of people to make that determination for you. And the justice system exists to litigate laws and crimes, and not whether or not someone should be able to participate in an election. This is the best outcome. Right now, with democracy being in the state that it's in, the last thing we need is people saying, hey, we're not going to even give you the option to vote for this person. That's not the solution.
And what kind of bellwether does it give you both on the presidential immunity case that the High Court will see? Kurt, I'll start with you. How much does this indicate about where the court may rule, or what the skepticism may be on that case?
I think that's very different, actually. I mean, the fact that this case was pretty much a unanimous decision tells you that all the justices agree it's best to put these things into people's hands. When we're talking about the question of whether or not a president can just do whatever he wants with immunity, I think that's going to be a split decision. I don't think no matter what the outcome is, it's going to be unanimous. That's a completely different precedent that's being set. And I think that what happened in this case doesn't really have any bearing on what the court's going to do one way or the other in the next one.
John, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Kurt. I think that it's a different set of circumstances. I would note that while I think this court is seen as more conservative, it certainly hasn't been a rubber stamp for all of the former president's arguments. Certainly in 2020, 2021, in the aftermath of that election, it was a fairly strong vote against a lot of his arguments. So we'll see what happens. I do think it's a different set of circumstances, and not really sure what to predict.
Well, Super Tuesday, we are now looking ahead to what we can expect tomorrow, and I know you both have a lot of thoughts on this. Nikki Haley says as long as 70% of Americans say they don't want a Biden-Trump rematch, that she's going to stay in the race. Is there a case to be made that even if she doesn't get the delegates that she needs tomorrow, that staying in is something that her team believes is the right strategy? John, I'll start with you.
You know, I think at some point, we talked about before, for one thing, as long as she does have gas in the tank, as long as she does have money to wage a campaign, she's going to keep taking her message to voters across the country. Having said that, once Donald Trump acquires enough delegates to have a majority of the delegates and take the nomination at convention, I think she will have to take a good, strong look as to whether or not she wants to keep going. Once there's no mathematical path for her, not really sure at that point what the justification is for her candidacy. But as I've said before, I think she's run a very strong campaign, and clearly she does have a strong group of voters who support her.
You guys have agreed on everything so far. Kurt, do you agree? Is this her final stand?
I think that as long as she keeps raising money, she stays in it. I mean, I believe in the last month she raised actually more than Donald Trump did campaign to campaign. So as long as people keep contributing to her, and as long as she keeps performing at a clip where 30 to 40% of Republican primary voters are voting for someone other than the eventual Republican nominee, I think we all agree Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. But even knowing that, the fact that a third of Republican primary voters are still choosing to vote for somebody else, and that person is Nikki Haley, that's a lot of people. That's not like 6 or 7%. It's not single digits. That is a meaningful number of people saying, we don't like Donald Trump. We don't want him to be our nominee. And as long as that trend stays the case, I think there's again, why not stay in the race? What does she have to lose? She's not going to be in Donald Trump's cabinet. She's not going to be on the ticket. There's no prize for her waiting at the end of this. So why not stay in it?
Yeah. What do you make, though, of the fact that she says she may change her mind on the promise of endorsement early on? At this point in the game, how significant is that, John?
A little surprising. I think that one thing Republicans have been pretty good at over the past few cycles, and in fact, going back, many, many years, is we have some long drawn out primaries, but at the end of the day, generally we come together in support of the nominee. So I thought that was noteworthy. I would expect that eventually she'll come around. Her home state of South Carolina very strongly supports Donald Trump. So I would expect eventually she will endorse the party's nominee. But yeah, it was a noteworthy comment for sure.
Kurt, final question for you. Trump possible running mates if he does become the nominee. Who do you believe is rising to the top of that, the surface in the crop of possibilities?
Donald Trump loves nothing more than a contest, than a reality show playing out in front of all of our screens, putting people against one another, people like Elise Stefanik, people like Tim Scott. I still think, and this is going to sound a little zany, but we're talking about Donald Trump here. It would not shock me in the least if he went down the road of like, hey, maybe Donald Trump Jr. should be on his ticket. This is an unconventional guy who doesn't care about conventional politics, doesn't care about the way things have always been, and he's egotistical enough to love the bumper sticker, Trump, Trump 2024.
Oh, my gosh, we'll leave it there. Can you imagine? All right, Kurt Bardella, John Seaton, thank you both. Again, the big news at this hour, the Supreme Court will allow Trump to remain on the ballot in Colorado and elsewhere. To you both, thanks as always.
Thank you.
See you soon.
All right, still ahead.